Good evening. It's Monday, the 6th of July, 2020, and we welcome you to a webinar with Emma Ferris, an introduction to book widgets for MFL teachers. My name is Helen Myers. I'm chair of the AWL London branch, and we love hosting anybody who will come to our webinars. But the person we're particularly grateful to is Jo Dale, who has managed to collect a lovely array of people from all across the country to talk to us, particularly at this time when we're wanting to know more about technology. Jo Dale, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I'd love to, Helen. Thanks ever so much. Yes, so it's amazing that lots of people have come along tonight. It's fantastic. We're very grateful to Emma for doing this Tilt webinar. So I'm an independent languages consultant. I've been working incredibly hard, as Helen has as well, in the last few weeks, trying to support language teachers at this very difficult time through these webinars, through social media and what have you. But obviously at the same time, I have to make a living as well. So if you would be interested in inviting me to do a paid webinar for your department, or I'm going to be soon individually starting up webinars that you can sign up to as well. In fact, next week on next Monday, I'm doing a webinar, which is actually going to be a free sign up for that one, for the all-in tool, which you can find out about if you follow me on Twitter. I can put a link in the chat for that later on as well, but that's not a Tilt webinar, it's a separate webinar series which I'm starting up. But I have put a link in the chat there to 18 example sessions. If you're interested in finding out more about the sorts of ways I can support you, then just get in touch and I can have a chat with you about that. That's great. Over to you, Helen.
Okay, we also always mention Lingoscope and Heike Philp, who've helped us in these webinars and setting things up. Right, if you're in AWL, you know that now is the time that I ask you to write in the chat, please, if you're a member, and to encourage other people to join. It's a great association to be a member of. It's the main association for language teachers. And if you're not a member, please join us. If you use the code webinar10, you can get a 10% discount on membership. So it's great for a community, being in part of a community. You also get a glossy magazine regularly normally, and we have a lovely conference every year. So please do join us. You will be able to see a recording of this afterwards. Jo Dale hosts it on his website, on his YouTube channel, Jo Dale 100, and it'll be referenced from the webinar, where we'll also have anything else to do with the webinar. Coming soon, we've got a webinar on Thursday, July the 9th with Claire Wilson. There's a summer social on July the 11th. It would be lovely if this Saturday, a few people have signed up, be great, just a little group of us, just to share YouTube videos or songs or jokes, or just to relax together. And then there are dates there for you to save. 14th of July with Graham Stanley. We're going to have a show and tell on the 18th of July, Michel Laroche on the 21st of July, Melissa Gould-Drakely on the 25th of July. These are really, really great opportunities to be listening to people who are very, well, as everybody has, very, very good speakers from across the world. So please do save those dates. We have almost got finalised the Eventbrite for that, so I'll send a link to that when we follow up this webinar. Please be aware of our etiquette. In summary, we aim to be professional and kind, and AWL London is very happy to host speakers and participants free of charge, but you're all responsible for what you say. So over to Jo to introduce Emma.
Okay, so thank you, Helen, ever so much for that introduction. So this evening for our Tilt webinar, we have Emma Ferris from Tring School, who's going to be talking about book widgets, which I would imagine people haven't heard about in the chat. Can you just let us know if you've heard of book widgets before? It was something that's sort of just come across on my radar in the last couple of months, but I'm really excited to see how it can be used in languages in particular. Emma is a languages teacher. As you can see, her bio's on the screen there, and she works in a Google reference school in Hertfordshire. She's also a Google certified trainer as well. So she's going to be talking us through how to use book widgets in the languages classroom. So this is fantastic. Yeah, we can see. Yeah, so lots of people have said they haven't heard about it before. So without further ado, over to you, Emma. Emma, thank you so much for offering to do this. And if you can share your screen now, we can get started. Thank you.
Brilliant. I've just popped a link into the chat box so you can access my slides as well.
Lovely.
I'll just share my screen. So I'm going to do a Helen and then check that you can see it.
Yeah, we can see it. It's all good. It's all good. Thank you.
So, hi everybody. As Jo said, my name is Emma, and welcome to my introduction to book widgets. Similarly, I kind of heard about it in January at the BET show and kind of mentally filed it away as something to look at when I had more time. And then actually, as part of the Google Certified Trainer community, we were given an opportunity to find out more about it. So I did, and very quickly went, oh, this is exciting and great for languages. So I've had a little bit of a play with it. So I'll just kind of talk you through that. So as Joe said, I am a languages teacher. I've been teaching languages now for about 10 years, and I'm a Google certified educator and trainer, as well as a BookWidgets certified trainer. I feel I should probably have a disclaimer at this point that I'm not by any means an expert. I've had fun playing with it, and it's been really great to use, particularly kind of while we've been in this remote learning situation. But you know, if anyone does kind of have any other ideas or uses has played with it before, feel free to chime in. And I've got some kind of extra resources to talk you through at the end.
Emma, could I ask you, Emma, sorry to interrupt, Emma, is it possible just to, I don't know whether you can speak a little bit louder or closer to the mic?
Yeah, I'll hold the microphone a bit closer.
Oh, that's yeah, if you don't mind, that'd be great.
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
So the link on the screen will just take you to the link for the slides for today. And I've linked in some kind of useful resources and things, particularly towards the end. So do feel free to kind of follow along as we go through if you want. So what we're going to look at today is BookWidgets. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what it actually is and how you can use it, particularly in the languages setting. And then we're going to look through some different examples, and then there'll be time for questions. And I think Joe and Helen will just chime in at various points with those, or we can talk about them at the end, whichever kind of works best. Personally, I hate sitting through webinars and things like this where you go, oh my god, this is amazing, and then you get to the end and you go, oh, but it costs a fortune. So I thought I would kind of tell you this up front now. So it is a paid product. It doesn't have a kind of freemium version where there's a free bit and then you can pay extra to have access to other features. There's a 30-day free trial, but then it's a subscription after that. You can pay monthly, which I think is €9 per month, or annually, which I think is just under €50 per year. After the free trial period ends, though, so if you only took out the 30-day free trial period, you can still share your created widgets, kind of your activities with students, but you won't be able to create any new ones. But the link to the subscription information is in there, and I might be able to find a way to extend it if you get in touch. I'll see what we can do. So with that kind of introductory part out of the way, I'll talk to you a little bit more about what it is. I've described it to my colleagues as kind of Google Forms on steroids. You can use it for all different sorts of interactive activities, and I'm going to talk you through some of those this evening. It's really easy to use. It looks quite complicated, but it's actually quite straightforward, and it follows kind of obvious patterns. And you use it to create these interactive activities, or widgets as they're called, and then you share them with students. There are over 40 different activities that you can choose from, which include things like quizzes, and they have, I think, about 30 different question types there. You can make worksheets, which are basically the same as quizzes, but go all in one go rather than screen by screen. And then there's lots of different games like crosswords, matching up games and things like that. My favourite feature is definitely that it can be self-marking, and you can build in feedback, but it will also email you students' work and as a PDF, and you can then just type onto that, because it's an interactive PDF. There's space for comments on different questions, which is really clever. And it also integrates with Google Classroom, which I will show you in a minute. So these are just some of the different activities, and we'll talk through this in a little bit more detail later, but just kind of so you get an idea. You can see kind of the green ones are your normal classwork type ones, and then these ones are your kind of games, and then you've got your kind of extras here, including one that lets you practice playing the piano, which is probably not that useful for languages, but I thought quite a cool feature. So essentially, all you need to do is pick which activity type you want to do, and then add your content. Essentially, think of BookWidgets as kind of a library of different templates. And all you need to do is add your content to it, and it kind of does magical things with it. You then share that with your students and then give feedback. So it's very simple and fast. As I mentioned earlier, I work at a Google reference school, so I will talk to you largely kind of from the Google side of things, but it is available on all sorts of different platforms, including an iPad app as well, so you can use it on everything. And from the student side, it works on any web-enabled device, so they can use it on their phones, tablets, Chromebooks, laptops, whatever they have, so that works nicely. I mentioned the Google Classroom integration before, so here all you need to do is you install a Chrome extension, which is for BookWidgets. And once you've done that, the next time you go to your Google Classroom and try and create an assignment in the classwork page, you'll see that you have the option for BookWidgets down at the bottom when that goes away. So yes, you can see that I could directly within Google Classroom, you can create a BookWidgets task, which is quite easy, and it's again just kind of a time saver. It doesn't matter if you don't have Google Classroom, you can do everything from the website, which I'll show you in a little bit. And basically you click on BookWidgets down in the corner and it will open up in a pop-up window, and then you just go through kind of the same steps as you would on the website, which is where we'll look at it today. So I thought probably the best way to give you a taste of this was for you to all be my students and have a go at this example. I think it's a French one, so hopefully that's okay with everybody. Feel free to just guess or look it up if you want. I'll just pop the link into the chat box, hopefully. So if I give you about 5 minutes or so to have a go at this, and then we can carry on.
So Emma, we've just had a question in the chat. Do you want us to do all the questions? Is that right?
Oh, just feel free to kind of pick and choose. That's fine. I'll give you another kind of minute or so.
That's
on
fine.
them.
No problem.
It's quite long. It's got an example of most of the self.
Don't worry. It's really cool. I've not seen it before. It's really nice. So is it possible to put in alternative answers? Like, for example, with
Yes.
so you could put in like le salon or la salle à manger, for example.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And
Cool.
I'll show you how to do that later. If
No
you
problem.
just remind me if I forget.
Yep. No problem. Someone asked in the chat, obviously you don't have to answer this, but the question was if you paid for BookWidgets or whether your school did or not. I suppose it's just because we're straitened times. I suppose, you don't have to answer that question, but
I've actually, as part of the training that was offered through the Google Certified Trainer program, I have, through to completing that, I have been given a year's license for it.
Right.
So I don't have to worry about that for another year.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, then it will be a fun question to ask.
Yeah, that's
But
great.
yeah,
Thank you.
I'll show some examples in a little bit that they have that are pre-made. So there's some languages ones on there, but there's loads for other subjects as well, which will be really useful if you need to convince other kind of heads of department or SLT members that it would be a wise purchase for the whole school.
Great. That's great. I can see in the chat as well, Helen McFarlane said that she can't see any questions. I think, Helen, what you have to do is click on the arrow bottom right. I made that mistake as well because I clicked, I think, on the image and I just saw the image and I couldn't work out where the questions were. And then I clicked on the arrow bottom right and that's when the questions came up, Helen. So try that. See if you if you can see. Yeah, that's it.
Bottom left and right, you just kind of click
Nice.
through.
Cool.
So I'm conscious of time, so I don't want to spend ages on this. Obviously, you have access to it, so feel free to kind of play around at your leisure. But this is an example that has kind of showcases kind of some of the different self-marking question types that you can use. And I'll just kind of talk you through those in a little bit more detail in a minute and we kind of explore it. This is kind of the student view, obviously. One of my favorite things about BookWidgets compared to Google Forms, which is kind of what I've used most of the time, is that actually you can set it so that by default it will remember where students left off. So if they are doing something over 2 lessons or they start doing something and have to, particularly at the moment while they're at home and they have to suddenly rush off for some reason and then they come back to it 10 minutes later, it's all still there and it's still saved for them, but they can clear it just by pressing this little dustbin button up in the top corner, so they could even kind of have multiple tries at it if they wanted to. You can turn that off as a teacher if you prefer, but I think that's quite a good feature. So we're going to have a go then at kind of exploring a little bit, and I'll talk you through kind of some of the different tasks you can do. So you can see here a very small example of the BookWidgets dashboard, which is the main screen that you get on bookwidgets.com. So I'll just open that up now on my screen and log in and show you what it looks like. So this is kind of the main dashboard. I've linked in at the end of the slides a link to the tutorials, which are really, really useful. Essentially, if you have any kind of questions, there will be kind of a tutorial there that talks you through it. And they've got them for kind of general how to use it and how to use it on different platforms. But also, then they've got kind of examples of how to use every single different widget, so the games, all the test ones, and everything like that. So it is kind of very well organized and very helpful. What you're going to want to do most of the time is just come on here and click on create a widget, or go to my widgets or widgets here, and you can see it kind of in various different places. So I'm just going to click on
While you're doing that, Emma, we've had a question in the chat from Gemma saying, would this be used for remote learning? Is that how you've used it, as each student has to have their own device? Is that right?
At the moment, yes, that is kind of how I've used it, mostly because I've only been playing with it since we've gone into the lockdown. Yes, I'm quite fortunate that I work in a school where we're one-to-one Chromebooks, so all our students do have their own devices. But there will be some things that you might want to set maybe as homeworks, or there'll be some games and things that you could potentially play kind of as a whole class as well. So kind of
that's awesome. And is it possible to have listening activities or speaking activities with BookWidgets?
Yes, it is. So I will show you those.
Awesome. That was another question in the chat. Lovely. Thanks ever so much.
Yeah, no problem. Again, if I forget, just remind me.
Okay.
So down here at the bottom, there's this examples section. And this, as I've already said, is really useful if you want kind of some ideas of how you can use it. But it also gives you kind of information, I suppose, about what each task does, what each widget does, and you can also make copies of them and see kind of to adapt them yourself or just take them as they are. So these are kind of the test and review ones. So these, I would say, are more kind of normal classwork ones. And there's all sorts of different things on here. Personally, I have found that the quiz and the worksheet are the most useful for me, but again, that will kind of entirely personal preference. The quiz and the worksheet let you create multiple different question types within it, which is really useful. And they're essentially the same, but the quiz is an example that you just did, where it goes from screen to screen to screen, whereas the worksheet just goes all the way down, so you just have question after question. So it's but they're both self-marking if you want them to be. The other one that's very clever is the split whiteboard or the split worksheet, because this lets you put instructions, for example, on one side, and then questions on the other side. And the whiteboard lets you kind of have a drawing one. So I'll just show you the example here. It is in English, but obviously this would be amazing when you're going to teach directions, because actually, if you had these instructions in your target language, then you can check the student's understanding, and they just have to click on choose the color of the pen down here. So I'm going to go for yellow, which is notoriously an excellent color to choose, so you can all see it. And then here, so I can do go straight on and take the second road on the right, then turn left, go to the end of the street, turn right, and go 1, 2, 3, etc. I'm going to give up there. But you could see kind of how that would work for students, and you can put kind of anything in here as a picture, and they can write over it. You could leave it blank, so you could write a description of anything, a bedroom, a photo for the kind of speaking photo card task, and they could draw it here in the whiteboard section. So I think there's loads of things you could do with that.
That's really awesome. Can I just ask another question from the chat? So it says, are you limited to a particular number of students who can use BookWidgets at the same time?
No, not that I found or know of.
Okay.
So
you could pay your €49 or what have you for the year, and then you can use it. Are you limited to the number of exercises you can have, or you can have access to all 40 and then as many students as want to use it?
Yeah, I think so. I haven't found any limits yet.
Okay.
So.
I just say, I've just put a link in the chat, and it has a really useful grid that says what you get for each of the things, and it's certainly unlimited there.
Okay,
Perfect.
great.
Thank you. Yeah, so those are kind of some of the more interesting ones here. We'll come back to talk about the quiz in a little bit, but I just wanted to show you again some of the games, which are potentially not as intellectually challenging as some of the other tasks, but it's always quite nice to have a little bit of bingo or crosswords or things like that, and particularly kind of at the moment while students are at home, I found they're quite good ways of getting them to practice their spellings of target language words. And although I did have to explain to one of my year sevens how you play hangman, which I wasn't expecting to have to do, so that was more of a shock than anything. The other thing that you've got here is a randomizer. And again, there's one, you can tell they've got quite a lot of language teachers on their team because there's quite a lot of language examples already. So there's one on verb tenses. So they've set up with the pronouns here, your infinitives here, and then your tense on the third column. And you can just spin it and you can pop that up on your board and have that as a game for students to conjugate. Similarly, I know that there's been quite a lot kind of going around about using Flippity to do something similar with kind of sentence builder ideas. And again, you could do that here, just kind of if you want things in one place. So yeah, and then there's kind of just so many different things. I genuinely probably could stay here all night talking about all of the different ones. But there's nice things here. The last one I want to show you was the hotspot image. I think so again.
I'm not sure if you can hear us, Emma, but your audio is distorted now. I don't know why that is. Maybe is it the microphone, do you think?
Probably. I'm taking the headphones.
There you go. That's much better.
In a second if I need to.
Lovely. Just as we're here, Helen in the chat has asked whether you think this would be suitable for A level, year 12 and year 13.
I think so. I think it very much is kind of open to what you do with it. There's kind of like I said, it's almost the template, and you can put what you like in it. So perhaps maybe not so much the games, but definitely the quiz and the kind of the worksheet tasks. I think you could do with anyone really. So I think essentially if you can think of it, you can do it here, which is quite clever. Yeah,
lovely. That's great. We can hear you loud and clear now. That's perfect.
Oh,
Thank
good.
you.
Excellent.
Oh, does it accept Arabic language? Do you know?
I don't know. I haven't tried, but I suspect it probably would. And if it didn't, the team seem to be very kind of responsive. And actually, if you reached out to them and asked, I suspect they would probably try and help.
Perfect.
At the very least.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem. So this is a hotspot image. I don't know if anyone's used ThingLink. This is a little bit like it, where you can essentially link pictures or audio to a background image. So this is just examples of kind of vocab practice.
Une pêche.
So students can just go through
Des carottes.
and click on them, and they can use that to practice. And again, this is kind of a very simple example, but you could do so much with it if you just think about
Une poire.
So yeah, I thought that was quite nice. So just going to scroll back up and show you then a quiz. So I'm back in the My Widgets section, and I'm going to create a new widget. So this is where you get to choose which kind of type you're going to go for. So I'm going to go for a quiz so that I can show you some of the particularly useful for language question types. And this is where it looks a little bit overwhelming, I think, but it is actually quite straightforward. And basically, you just have to remember to always work your way from the top down. So these are kind of your different tabs, and you're always going to start with your questions and your name. So let's call this test tilt so that I know what I've called it now. And then you get to choose your questions. So you just click add question, obviously, and then here it brings up the 30 different types of questions that you can use. And again, I won't talk through kind of all of them in great detail, but just so you've got kind of a brief overview, you can just add texts there, although remember they will appear just on the one screen if you do it in a quiz. So you could have it on one screen and then students can flick back and forth if you were doing kind of a reading task, for example. You can do multiple choice questions with just one correct answer or multiple answers. And then you have different kind of open-ended questions. So you've got the single line text where it's just going to be a short answer, and then the multi-line and the rich text questions if you want to kind of give them a bit more freedom and free reign there. Then we get on to kind of some of the ones that I think are more exciting and much more relevant for MFL. So things like the fill in the blanks question, like you saw in your example. So you can have you have a text and the students have to fill in the blank spaces in the sentence. So let's start with one of those. So essentially all I would have to do is type in type in the question here. So here I'll put fill in the blanks, and in the text I'm just going to write something like and then let's put with the correct article, and then here they're going to say Eine Schwester. There we go. And all you do is you put the words that you want to blank out in these kind of double angled brackets, and it is kind of not quite idiot proof, but it does show you exactly what you need to do. One of my other favorite features in this, in BookWidgets, is that you can, by default, answers are case insensitive. And if you click on that, you can change it. So particularly for German, where you might want to insist on them having capital letters for nouns, you can make sure that it's case sensitive. And you can also choose to ignore accents if you wanted to for languages. So that's there. I'll talk a little bit about these later. So let's say that's all I want for that question. I go back and now I can add another question. So here we've got one where you can mark the sentence, and this is quite nice for picking out, for example, verbs or tenses or adjectives or things like that. I might actually switch over to my Blue Peter style one I made earlier rather than typing in a whole load of texts for you. So for this one, I asked the students to pick out the reflexive verbs, and all you need to do is kind of fill it in with those angled brackets again, and this time you label it. I only had the one option, so it was just reflexive verbs here, but I could have reflexive verbs, I could have adjectives, I could have near future tense, I could have time phrases, I could have as many different categories as I want. You just have to label which category they are. And I'll just show you what that looks like. You can always preview it from the student view. The one thing that I don't like about the preview is that it always starts somewhere random and you have to try and find where you're up to. So there we go. So it starts kind of where you left off last time, I think. So here they're going to highlight the reflexive verbs. So let's say that I'm very confused and I think that vivo is a reflexive verb, so I'm going to highlight that. But then I go, oh, actually, I have absolutely no idea what reflexive verbs are. I better have a look at this hint that Mrs. Ferris has very kindly left for me. So I've got a hint here and I put, for example, reflexive verbs use me before them, e.g. me lavo. So I can go, oh, right, okay, vivo is not a reflexive verb. Let's get rid of that. And actually, I know that me despierto is. There we go. So, and that is set up down here, where you have this hint part. You can just type in a hint for them, and you'll see that it's optional, as I just showed you, so students can choose to display it or not, which is really nice for differentiation.
We just had a question in the chat, Emma, which is, can the students work synchronously in pairs, or is the question, task, an individual response?
It's individual, so I suppose they couldn't, it's not collaborative. They couldn't have both be working on the same thing at the same time.
Great, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. No problem. The next thing that I'm going to show you is putting words in words in order, or sentences in order. So it's a word ordering question. So here I've just chosen words, so they were putting words in the correct order to form a sentence. And the very simple thing about BookWidgets is you always just enter the correct answer. So you don't have to worry about kind of making it complicated. You just fill in what you want the correct answer to be, and then it will randomize it for them. So you could do it with words or sentences, and you get to choose that option here. And again, you can kind of mark it there and add the hint if you want to. So I left loss with a capital L and media with a full stop to help them. But in theory, you could tell them kind of, it starts with Los Jueves, for example. And again, just to show you what that looks like from the student view. If I can find it again. There we go. So they can then just drag these around, and you'll see that it's already separated it. If I wanted to be nicer, I could probably have put kind of some of the prepositions together with the phrases rather than leaving it to them to do. But yeah, that's that. The next ones that I'm going to show you is a picture one, if I can find that. Oh, I'll show you the words into the correct gaps. That's also clever. So you saw this in the example. So you can, again, if you've got your text, rather than fill in the blanks, you can set up a task with a word bank at the bottom by just kind of putting your words in brackets. And they then kind of appear at the bottom in a word bank. And you can also add distractors in. So you can leave extra words, add extra words to your task just to confuse them slightly if you want, which is quite nice.
With the tile activity you just showed us, is it possible to color code the tiles if like for say nouns or verbs or what have you, or does it all have to be the same color?
I think it all has to be the same color, but you could potentially use a different question type for that, or have it as whole sentences,
right,
and then rejig that. That might work a bit better. That's okay. So yeah, so here you now just have to drag the words in. I didn't give them any distractors because I felt nice for this task, obviously. But yeah, you can kind of drag them in, and you can see that I've put some of them as phrases rather than words. But it's one of those nice tasks where actually the gaps all look equal sizes. Because I don't know about you, but my students definitely go, oh, that one's long and that's the longest gap, so it has to go there. The next one I'll show you is a picture one. So again, rather than kind of testing them on words all the time, they can read a text or listen to a text. I'll show you that in a second. And instead they can put pictures in order. And if they're doing it on their phone, for example, and they go, actually, it's quite small, it's really easy to just click on it. And it will zoom into the picture, so they can go, all right, oh, that's a shower. Okay, I get it now. And they just have to drag them into place down there. So for that one, I've now lost somewhere. Oh, here, it's this one. Right, the obvious one there. And this is, and again, you always add the answers in the correct order. It's really easy in BookWidgets to add images. So when you're doing that, you just click add images and you get these 3 options by default. So you can choose an image from your actual device, so from your computer or wherever you are. You can import from Google Drive, and you can also find an image online. So let's say that I wanted a picture of a kitchen. This takes you to the Pixabay library, where all of the images are kind of available to be used and copyright free. So that's always helpful. So let's say I wanted a picture of a kitchen, and I'm going to pick that one. Then that appears there. So what I really like about this is you can do everything pretty much from within BookWidgets. You don't have to do that much preparation beforehand. You don't have to go, oh, now I need to find all my pictures first. You can do it all kind of within here. I'll talk to you now a little bit about these options as well, and then I'll show you some of the speaking and listening tasks, which are really helpful. So down here, you have the option for your, which is called the rationale. Most of the tasks, I think 25 out of 30 of them are self-marking. Obviously, the ones that are kind of longer answers aren't. So you would need to do those kind of yourself. But in the rationale, you can put in your kind of model answer, which students could then use to compare with theirs. You've also got down here the scoring options, and you can decide for some of them will just automatically do kind of one, well, you can change the number of points at any time. So you can have 1, but you can also do halves as well if you wanted, or 2 points per question, whatever you want to do. Some of them will kind of automatically multiply the points, so I'll show you that in a second if I can find the right question type. But you can also, for this one, well, this is the putting the pictures in order one, they're going to get 1 point for each item in the correct position. But I could change that if they, and just say that actually they have to have all of them in the correct order to get the points. But I like that you can kind of break it down so that it's 1 point per picture. So let's have a look then at the audio ones. So these, I think, are the most useful ones. In fact, I'll show you how to do it from the beginning for languages. So you click on the add a question, and some of the options are particularly useful. So you can have an audio recording question. So here I could put, for example, I'm switching languages now just because. So I could give them a photocard style question. So I could choose the question here. I can find a picture. Again, I can find one online. So let's have a picture of a family. Which one looks most like a photocard? That would be impossible to describe. There we go, let's have that one. And that's up there. And students, I'll just show you this now. Oh, here we go. So students now have to record their have to record their answer here. And again, it's super easy because it's all built in. There's none of this having to set up another kind of website for them to record on, or them having to faff about with recording it on a different device and emailing it to themselves or to you. It's all in one place and all embedded, which makes life so much easier. So you just click on the recording button. So, auf dem Foto gibt es eine Familie. And then, hey presto. So, auf dem Foto gibt es eine Familie. That's all there and recorded, and that will get submitted to the teacher at the end. And I think that's really, really useful. You can also, though, include listening tasks. So if I go back to adding the different types of questions, and I'll show you the audio questions. So you can do audio to word match questions or audios to picture, for example. And let's put in here. So I'm going to add the audio description. And when you get your answers from the students, it's just a PDF. So on the PDF, you don't have the sound files, you just see a little picture of a speaker, and they haven't embedded them in there. So this is just for your reference and for the students' reference when they've finished it, and they're looking at the PDF version that's marked. You can see that, you can see what it was supposed to be. So let's do rooms and that. So let's do bedroom, and then.
Yeah, do you know if there's an amount of time, well, it's a question in the chat, if there's a shelf life for how long the audio is stored on their servers for? Do you know, Emma?
I don't know that, I'm afraid.
That's all right. I'm sure if if we ask the website, they can tell us. But I would imagine if you're paying the amount per year or what have you, then I presume it'll be there for at least a year, I'd have thought. But I'm sure the information, is. Yeah. Lots of really lovely positive comments in the chat. Ursula said, "I'm sold." Other people have said, "So good for speaking practice." So yeah, you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Oh, good, excellent. So I'll just show you then how you can do listenings. And again, one of my favorite things is that it's all it can all be done internally. So you could, of course, if you click select audio, you can import again from your Google Drive, you can upload it from your device. So if you've got an MP3 file somewhere that you want to use for listening practice, you can add that in. But you can also just record straight away here. So I'm going to record, I think I said bedroom, oh well, das Schlafzimmer. And then it just processes. I can check that it's okay. Das Schlafzimmer. So yeah, that's fine. It uploads and there we go. It's all kind of in there. And then I choose my picture. And let's have that one. That looks like a nice bedroom. And then that eventually uploads. There we go. And you pop that in. And again, it's always got instructions for you about kind of about adding distractors. So you could leave either the audio empty if you want only a few audio tracks and several pictures, or you could have lots of pictures or lots of words if you chose the text option, and also the other way around, lots of recordings and only a few pictures, to kind of get them to identify which one goes with which. So there's all sorts of clever things there.
Is there the possibility of giving audio feedback with this?
There isn't at the moment. You get as a teacher, you get a PDF version sent through to you. You can also view it through BookWidgets itself. I unfortunately can't show you that because I've only actually used it with my real students.
Yeah, that's
so
fine. Yeah, of course.
it will have their names all over
that's
it.
Fine.
But yeah, you could, in theory, open it up and then do your own kind of verbal feedback, however you do that, using any other kind of extensions or tools
Right,
that you want.
like Screencastify, for example.
Exactly, yeah.
We've also had the question about, does this work with MS Teams, or is it in a Google environment it works best, or what do you think?
I know they're a Google for Education partner, so I unfortunately I don't have any experience at all with MS Teams, so I'm not sure, but I would imagine that it will work well. It won't have kind of the integration that it has with Google Classroom, but I think it will work perfectly well. I'll show you now. So let's say I finished my lovely mixed language test here, and then you kind of just go through. So that's the question tab's done. You then go through the rest of the tabs. And you can give it kind of down here. This is where you choose whether or not students can submit their work. And if you turn this on, then it means that students will send their answers to you. You might want to have that off if they're just doing it for practice, but again, kind of that's personal choice there. And again, you can decide if you want them to only submit once, but then you would need to put it on through your LMS. So for me, it would be Google Classroom. And you can also have the option of turning on an exam mode, which is not as advanced as I was hoping it would be, but it does show you how long the student took to do it. You can set a timer for how long they have to do the task as well, and it locks once they've finished until you've kind of marked it, so they can't do anything else there. So you can turn that on and then set the number of minutes there as well. The other things that you have down here are in the general. This is where you've got a few kind of your important ones. So things like the scoring options. So you can decide whether you want the students to see how many points each question is worth. This is the save and restore answers that I mentioned earlier that I really like. So you can save it, so even when they leave, it will save their answers for you. You can turn spell check on and off and that sort of thing as well. You can make them look pretty, so you can add cover images as well, so that's quite nice. And you can even say, oh, there we go, so you can probably have Arabic writing and things
here.
It's
fantastic.
Right to left for Hebrew, for example. So there you go.
Do students need to sign up with an email to use this? And if you want feedback from them? Sorry, there's a bit of an echo. I don't know why that's suddenly happened. Is it because I don't know if anyone else has got their microphone on or what have you, but you're still wearing headphones, aren't you, Emma?
I'm not. I'll plug them back in.
Oh, there you go. That'll be right. Cool. Thank you. Cool. So yeah, so just to clarify then, do the students need to sign up to have an account, or how does that work?
So they don't need to sign up to access it. I'll show you now. Well, so I'm ready to do all of this. I've finished checked everything through. I've previewed it. And then you click the share button. And then you have two options. It's not very happy with my internet at the moment. There we go. So I'm connected to my Google Classroom account, but I will just ignore that for now. So I'm going to show you the other sharing options. And here you have two options. So which are based on this send answers to me link or box here. If you tick that, you get this link here, and if you can share that anywhere. So you put that on show my homework, you can just copy paste that into Google Classroom if you wanted to, or put it anywhere else, and then the answers will come back to you. So the students don't need to sign up with an account, but when they go to submit their answers, they get a little pop-up box where they just type in their name and their email address, and that kind of goes through then, so that the answers are linked to them and their email account. If you untick send answers to me, then you get a link that you can put in where then if students did want to submit their answers and you set that up, then you would need to, they would need to enter your email address. So if you were going to share something that you'd made with perhaps the rest of your department, that would be the link that you'd want to use, so that unlike me, you didn't end up getting the whole of year 7's answers to one of the tasks. So yeah, you can use that link there.
Great, thank you.
That's okay. And I think that is pretty much it. The only other thing that I was going to say was, if you, let's say I decided that now, oh, actually they're really terrible at the past tense, I better do some more work on that, and I want to add a question to it, you then get a little message that pops up down here saying, do you want to update your widget? And you just press that. So you don't need to share another link or anything like that. You just press that and it updates it wherever it is. So students who then go on to that the next time would have the updated version, which is quite clever. And I think, yeah, that is pretty much.
We've got a couple of more questions, if that's okay. So one question is, can you duplicate a quiz to save time?
Yes, you can, absolutely. So back in the My Widgets part, down here, let's say I wanted to have this, I can just click down here and choose duplicate.
Oh, lovely. Okay, yeah.
And then you can put it here. You can also join, so you can have folders or groups, I suppose, rather than folders. So there are lots of groups that already exist. So you can join, you know, a French teachers group or anything like that. There we go.
Oh, wow. So there's actually a community of practice where people are sharing book widget exercises.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
So that's all there in my groups, and you can just search for them. So let's search for French. There we go. And there's loads. It is still quite American, I think.
And then presumably if you find a quiz you like, you can then add it to your account. Is that right?
Exactly, yeah. So you just duplicate it to your account, and that's it. You can then go away and adapt it, edit it, and you just have to request to join each of the groups, rather than kind of being able to preview it in advance, which is a little bit annoying, but not the end of the world.
And what does the live feature mean on the left-hand side there?
So I haven't actually played with this because it is very new, but what it lets you do is essentially you watch, if you put it onto kind of your learning management system, so you put it on Google Classroom, for example, you can then watch students completing it. So it just color codes as they go through. So you just see kind of where they're up to, and it color codes it as green, amber, red, for how much they're getting right or wrong. So it's just really easy to just have a quick glance at, little Johnny still hasn't done any work. What a shame.
And that would work in a remote teaching context, do you think?
Yes, that's why they brought it out, I believe. They kind of rushed it through, I think, so that it was ready for remote teaching. So just to make lives easier to track it easily. So.
And can the teacher send feedback? Like, let's say little Johnny hasn't done his work, and the teacher then say, Johnny, I can see on my screen you haven't done your work. You need to get on with, you know, exercise 3 or something. Not
through BookWidgets itself.
Yeah, you don't. Okay.
Obviously, you can find it and go, I can
through
see
Classroom.
You haven't done your work. Through Classroom or email or contacting parents or however you.
Yeah.
Life a nightmare. So.
Okay. That's lovely. That's really lovely. Well, there's been lots of lovely comments in the chat. I think this has been new to everybody, so it's really nice to see something which we haven't seen before, and obviously, and then delivered by a language teacher. It's great, Emma. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. You're very welcome. There's just a few more resources that I've linked into the slides towards the end. So like I said, they do have quite a lot of languages teachers in their department, in their team, I think. So there's a blog post on 7 ways to use BookWidgets in the MFL classroom, and then I've linked in kind of the information and examples on the over 40 different types of things that you can do with it. So it's definitely worth an explore and kind of having a play with, I would say.
Definitely. That's amazing. Are there any other questions in the chat? I think we've answered. I think Emma's done a brilliant job in answering all the questions. If you have any other questions in the chat, feel free to add them now. We still got because we obviously had the introduction. If you're happy to spend a little bit more time, if you have any questions, have a look. Yeah, so Helen, sorry, Emma, you've already shared your presentation, haven't you? I think. Is that right?
I have, yes. I'll pop the link back up.
Lovely, thank you. Any other question? I can see Helen McFarlane's getting very excited about this. This is great.
Yes, I'm glad.
You could all open up their if you want to open up your
Yeah, good idea, Helen. Yeah.
webcams. So perhaps you could, if everybody's got
Shall
the
I
link,
stop
and then
sharing?
we could.
Yeah, if that's okay, Emma. That's all
Helen
right.
would be excited about this because she'd be a good very good at selling things. I think Helen. I think that was superb. Really good, Emma.
Thank you.
Because obviously in your head you're thinking about there are quite a lot of products out there, aren't there?
Yes.
But certainly things where you can author your own resources and make them look as professional as that. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, one question, because I noticed that on the chart it talks about a higher level being where you pay for a school to be able to have a subscription, and it says it would then integrate with your LMS system, and I'm wondering whether that's something that would be a particularly selling point. Things like Microsoft Forms are brilliant. If you're a Microsoft school, you do the form and it feeds straight into your markbook.
Yes, yeah.
And presumably for a Google school it's the same.
It is, yeah, much the same. But like I said, I work quite closely with one of our assistant heads who's in charge of kind of the whole IT strategy, and I said, I found this, you're going to really like it. He was like, what can it do that Google Forms can't? I was like, well, where do I start?
Yeah.
Off a list of about 10 different things. And I think for me, having kind of all those different examples for different subjects, because although I know I have kind of a whole school role, I don't get into other subjects as much as I would like, and so people get a bit fed up with me going, look, this is great for languages, but being able to go, look, you can do this for maths and you can do this for science and this for geography, I think it's kind of will hopefully help me sell it a little bit further down the line.
So Pilar, you had a question. Do you want to open your mic and put the question, or do you want us to ask for you?
No, that's fine. You might hear the music from my son in the background. I was just looking at the pricing options. And I can see the first one, there's a teacher one. There's a teacher one for, I think, a reduced price of €49. And then there's a standard one, which is coming out to €200. So as teachers, with that basic one, it would be enough to create the widgets and...
Yes, I think it's just... I think it is just an education discount.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Because even if the school didn't pay for that, I mean, that for that price, you could pay yourself, really.
Yeah.
What we do, isn't it, Pilar?
I know.
I think a number of times, and I forget as well. It's terrible because I tend to forget. Perhaps I'm a bit profligate because I don't have kids, and I think, well, this is just. I tend to think of things. This is the cost of, I don't know, an hour in a care home when I'm old and there's someone to look after me, and I keep on updating things. Kahoot! I suddenly discover, I've obviously clicked on something to give myself this higher level, and then I forget to use it. So,
yeah. Thank you.
Helen, you've got a question. Are you going to open up? Lovely to hear you, Pilar, because we've seen you every single. You've been so loyal. I must take pictures, by the way, of everybody. I'm about to take a picture now, and then Helen's going to ask her question. Let's have a picture. Or smile. 1, 2, 3.
Gosh.
Thank you very much. Lovely. That's great. So, Helen.
Yes, it was just something that you mentioned there, Emma, just en passant, and you were talking about your colleagues from other departments, and I was just wondering whether, with using this technology, with the would you be prepared to do a quill session? So teaching their geography lesson, for example, using BookWidgets, and French with a few terms. If you were to work together with, say, geography teacher or history teacher, especially if it coincided with aspects of the French curriculum, for example, or the German or Spanish that you were teaching, could you offer the opportunity of a quill session, do you think?
Quite possibly. I suspect...
I'm not trying to give you extra work to understand, Emma.
It would have to go through a lot of people far more important than me, I'm afraid. But, it's something that I would be up for, definitely.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.
And we also see, and I don't know how to pronounce, I've asked before, Uxia. Is that how we pronounce? Could you please open your mic and tell us how to pronounce your name?
Ushia.
Ushia. Because again, you've been to most of these webinars, I think. Haven't you?
I'm so grateful. Thank you. It's really, honestly, it's amazing what you are doing. It's great.
But it's all, we always say it's teamwork, isn't it? It really is teamwork. And for it to be successful also, you need people to come along and support. And, you know, we're all giving each other support, aren't we? So, and it's lovely. And Darnell is, I don't know, Darnell, if you're still there, but certainly there are names that we see. So I realised we clash. I said to Joe, I realised on a Monday evening we clash, don't we, with MFL chat on Twitter as well. So, but we'll put out the link so that people can see the recording. That's great. And I've forgotten already. Ushia.
Ushia.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And there's Caroline as well. Now, Caroline, you look as if you're in a very built-up area there, beautiful area. Where is it? Oh, you're
muted. Oh.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, okay. No, that's my favourite place, which is in Dubai, where my son lives. But I'm actually in North Germany.
You look as if it looks as if you're bathed in sunlight there with Dubai behind you. I don't know how you manage that. It's lovely. I noticed you there when you came to Paul's session as well, didn't you? And I particularly saw the landscape there. So, right.
Fantastic. Lovely. Okay. Thank you so much, Emma. That was really, really interesting.
Ever so good. Really, really good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Emma, I used to work at Tring School 100 years ago.
There we are.
It's a good place. It's a nice place.
Yes.
Yeah, I imagine
lovely
changes since I left there. But thanks very much for everybody, and thank you, Helen, and thank you for Joe and Emma and everybody else.
No problem. Our pleasure.
Should I stop the recording then now?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Stop our live streaming as well. So do stop live stream and recording, stop recording. And then I'll send you